Today, we finish off our mid-season re-rank of the Mariners farm system with, of course, the top 10. Let's get into it. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. This is Tai Pete and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to be unveiling our top 10 Mariners prospects on today's show. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. That's LOCKDON to get yourself started. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. All right, let's kick off our top 10 Mariners prospects with Mariners second round prep pitcher Ryan Sloan. And Colby, at 18 years old, the first thing that stands out for Ryan Sloan, this kid is built. Not much filling out he's going to have to do physically.
Yet there still might be a little bit to add on. He's 6'5" and 220, so there might be, a few more pounds of muscle to add on. But yeah, he is like the prototypical when scouts talk about like, oh, he's got the body of an innings-eating ace, blah blah blah. Like they're talking about like Ryan Sloan, and the fact that he's 18 years old, can't even say for sure that he's not going to add a couple of inches and that he can't add 20, 30 pounds. So he might not be done growing yet, but as he stands right now, he looks like a major league, innings eater type of guy. Like he has that build. And yeah, the stuff is really exciting. It is already plus fastball value. He can really make that fastball do whatever he wants to right now. And the interesting thing about Sloan is that it's not the slider or the breaking ball that is his best secondary pitch, although that appears like that is going to be an above average offering for him as well. It's actually the changeup that he has a really good feel for. So we're talking about above average fastballs and changeups at 18 years old with his build, with his size and his repeatable delivery. He throws a lot of strikes, and the slider is hardly a tag along pitch. Like that is a legitimate slider that has a chance to give him 3+ pitches with his size and his strike throwing ability. Sloan is a guy that, obviously it's the Mariners really loved, and it's easy to see why. Checks a lot of the boxes that they look for in pitching. He's just young. He's 18 years old, so it's probably going to be a little while before we see him, but he's pretty advanced for an 18-year-old, both in size, stuff, command, control. So there's a chance we see him before too long, relative to most prep arms. It takes him a while. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy, but so far so good, and it is a really fun profile, and it is a lump of clay that the Mariners player development gets their hands on. Like, this kid could be at the top of the rotation arm. He has that kind of upside. There's just a little more risk since he's a prep guy.
Coming in at number 9 is Tai Pete, 19 years old. Got hurt earlier this year. Hasn't been a great year in his first full season in professional baseball at Low A Modesto. He was number 4 on our list the last time we did this. He falls to number 9. So what are your feelings on Pete's first year in pro ball?
Overall, pretty encouraging. He just turned 19 about 10 days ago. So he played pretty much all this season as an 18-year-old. He had to battle through some injuries. That stuff's going to happen. And you look at what he's done at 18 years old in Modesto. 258, 338, 386. Obviously, there's some concern, that's not what you would love to see, but he is, again, playing professional baseball as an 18-year-old pretty much the entire year. So that has some good things like 36 stolen bases, 7 triples, 6 homers, 19 doubles. He has struck out 142 times in just 396 at-bats. So obviously that's something he's got to cut way down on. But again, he's basically played this entire season at 18 years old. It is his age 18 season. He is 19 now. He'll probably reset at Modesto next year, and there's high probability he's going to get to Everett. I think yesterday he actually played a little bit of left field. So they're still trying to move him around a little bit. He obviously is one of the best athletes in the entire system. He's one of the best athletes in the minors. It is just tools on tools on tools. Like he's got a great arm. He's got good raw power, maybe even plus raw power. He's a great athlete. He runs well. He fields pretty well at shortstop. He might be able to play third. He might play center. Like, this kid is just a great athlete. He's tooled up, and he's having a pretty decent year, statistically speaking. And again, considering his age and the level of competition he's playing at right now, he has been, he's been totally fine. It's been a little start-stop because of the injuries. The strikeouts are a bit of a concern, but we're seeing the raw power. We're seeing the athleticism. We're seeing what he can do on the bases, and we're seeing the versatility he brings. So plenty of reason to be really excited about Tai Pete.
Coming in at number 8 is the Mariners' first-round draft pick this year at pick number 15, Lazaro Montes, the switch pitcher who comes in as, spoiler alert, our number 1 pitcher in the Mariners farm system. So Colby, tell us a little bit about Lazaro Montes.
Yeah, switch pitcher. That's kind of the gimmick, but not unlike a guy like Sloan, not a ton of projection in terms of the frame. He's 5'11". He's about 200 pounds right now. He's pretty much tapped out on the physical side of things. And, to me, the whole switch pitcher thing didn't help or hurt his rank at all. To me, he is a right-handed pitcher. That's how I view him. And then maybe occasionally he'll throw left-handed, but from the right side is where you want this guy. This is where it's basically he ditched the switch pitching thing about halfway through this season for Mississippi State. And from the right side, it is, a plus fastball, above average slider, average fringe average changeup, throw strikes, command, not quite where you want it to be, but good athlete. There's going to be a lot of Marcus Stroman comps because they're both smaller guys. They're both really good athletes. They both are going to throw strikes, and it's, not so much swing and miss stuff, at least, as you would think of for a guy who's going to.
Sage has already mentioned that he's his favorite pitcher too.
Right. So it's a really easy comp to make. But there's quite a bit of velocity from Sja, despite his size. 5'11", you typically don't think of a guy throwing in the high 90s, but Sja can get there. Right now, he's mostly 94, 95, but he can definitely top out 98, 99. And again, this is a guy who, kind of like Sloan, it's 2+ pitches now and pretty good shape and feel for a plus third pitch. So yeah, I think Sja probably has a lower ceiling than a guy like Sloan, but he's almost certainly going to be at least a number 4 starter, strike thrower, get some ground balls, get a little bit of swing and miss going. But ultimately, I don't think he's a top of the rotation guy. But there's upside here. There's certainly upside. He's probably starting next year in Modesto, but there's a chance he might start in Everett. Like it's certainly not something that you could write off entirely. So he has a shot to get to the big leagues within 2 years. Kind of depends on what they want to do with him from the left side. But yeah, he's obviously fascinating because of the switch pitching thing. But for me, he's just a right-handed pitcher. And because of the polish, because of his age, and because of he has less development to go, he goes ahead of Ryan Sloan. But I think that gap is actually closer than people think.
All right, so that is the first 3 of our top 10 Mariners prospects. We still got 7 to go, and we're going to get into some of those in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, which, of course, is America's #1 sportsbook. Well, I have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's LOCKEDON, to download America's #1 sportsbook. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Tonight you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Dodgers on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. We are ranking our top 10 Mariners prospects here on today's episode, wrapping up our top 30 midseason re-ranking. Coming in at number 7 is Felix Celas, the 18-year-old infielder who played all year in the complex league, or tried to play all year in the complex league, but injury after injury after injury inhibited him from being able to build up any sort of consistency. So you do worry about that, but the raw tools here are still so intriguing that I didn't want to push him too far down our list, even though we didn't really learn a lot about him. Now, when he did play, he was pretty good this year. But again, the problem was he just couldn't find the field. So, Colby, how are you feeling about Celas right now?
Still really good. He'll be 19 years old in about a month. So it's plenty of time to develop here. The tools are still off the charts. There's still projection in his frame, even 6'1", about $170, $180 is what he's listed at. So there still might be room to add another 15, 20 pounds. The numbers that he put up in the ACL were all fantastic. He's probably the most talented player in the ACL at pretty much any time he played. He was the most talented guy on the field. So this is still a super tooled up guy. This is still a super talented guy. Again, it's just he's at least 3 years away from the big leagues. He didn't get a full season's worth of work this year, which is going to, I don't want to say stunt his development, but it is going to, kind of slow down the ascent up these ranks if you don't play. So Celas might be, in a year from now, he might be the number one prospect in the Mariners system, which is saying something when you consider the guys at the top, particularly the guy at the top of both of our lists. Celas might be better than him. That's really saying something. But until you play, until you produce every day, until you, get in the lineup and stay in the lineup, it's kind of tough to have you ranked, much higher. And honestly, the fact that he's in the top 10 still speaks to his insane talent level.
Coming in at number 6 is Lazaro Montes, who is now in high A Everett at 19 years old. Colby had him ranked 6 on his list. I had him in my top 5, had him at 5th. He was 6th the last time we did this. Laz is the most polarizing prospect in the Mariners farm system by far. There's some people that think he's the best prospect in this farm system. There's some people that think he's at least top 3. And then for us, I think we're both kind of the low men on Laz, because he really only has one path to being a quality big leaguer. And that's, he's got to hit, and he's got to hit well, right? It's not just he's got to be a league average hitter. No, he's got to be like a 120, 130 WRC plus guy for him to kind of hold this status within the Mariners farm system at the very least. Right. At the very least, he has to be that. Obviously, there's been the baby Jordan comps and all that. Now, when we did this ranking, he was really struggling down in Everett. Over the last week or so, he's been hitting out of his mind. Now, he's still striking out like 32.5% of the time, which is, but he's also 19 years old in high A. It's not like he's 22, 23 years old doing that in high A. No. So certainly a bit of leeway should be given there to young Laz. But been kind of a interesting year for him. He had a great year in Modesto. And honestly, it felt for a while that he was down there for a little too long. Seemed like he had already outgrown low A. I don't know, 30 or so games into his season. He ended up playing about 60 or so down there before getting the call up to Everett. But again, started to struggle a little bit down in Everett to start things off. But it seems like he's starting to figure it out and get a little bit more comfortable. So we'll see if he's able to end the season on a high note. But Laz right now for me, again, because it's just one path, he's really not going to be able to get, I know we've seen a couple of nice catches out in the outfield from MILB Mariners on Twitter. He's not an outfielder, guys. He's going to be a first base DH type when it's all said and done. I mean, he might play outfield in the way that Jordan Alvarez plays outfield, which is
he stands out there.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have a small ballpark, you don't have to cover much ground. Like, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
He'll probably do that for a couple of years. But I mean, we're still assuming that Laz Montes isn't even like he's listed at 6'3", 210. Seems like he's going to get bigger even than that. And he's going to add weight to his frame. He's a decent runner still right now, but the routes, the angles, the jumps are all mediocre at best. So is it possible that he gets better as an outfielder and he can actually play a legitimate corner spot, like an average corner outfielder defensively? Sure, it's possible. I'd consider it unlikely. So yeah, there is just the one path he has to hit. He has to crush, and he did struggle in Everett. He's got one fewer strikeout. He had one fewer strikeout one fewer strikeout in Everett than he did in Modesto, but he's got about 100 more plate appearances in Modesto than he does Everett. So the fact that he's striking out basically is the same number of strikeouts with 100 fewer plate appearances in Everett. Obviously, he struggled a little bit, and the numbers will back that up. And honestly, that's a good thing. It's you want to see guys struggle. You want to see them have to make adjustments and things like that. And Montes really never has had to do that. He's always been just crushing wherever he's been. And so it was nice to see him, have to make that adjustment. And obviously he has made some kind of adjustment. And I'd say this for prospects 6 through 2, you could put them in whatever order you want. I don't think there's a huge gap between any of them. But to me, because Montes has one path to be a good big leaguer, it puts a lot of pressure on the guy who's 19 years old to be, a 135 WRC plus guy, since I'm getting no defensive value and probably very little base running value. But again, it's happened before. We've seen young guys be like, yeah, he's probably going to add more weight. He's probably going to, slow down a little bit. And then, oh, look at that. It's Julio Rodriguez. No, he can actually be 6'4", 230, 240 and still be one of the fastest guys in the big leagues. Yeah.
Right.
So could something like that happen with Laz? Yeah. And if it did, he's probably, top 3. If you told me he was going to be an average right fielder, like he could play the field at an above average rate or an average rate even, then yeah, his bat alone probably puts him in the top 3. But because there's only one path that I see to him being an everyday big leaguer, I got to knock him down a couple spots. But you could put him 2. If you told me he's the second best prospect in the Mariners system, I'd disagree, but I'd be like, yeah, fine. You can make that argument. But to me, I think this is where he belongs.
Coming in at number 5, this one's going to be pretty interesting. Because, Colby, you had him at number 3 on your list. I had him at number 6. I'll explain why in a second here. He was number 9 the last time we did this. Johnny Farello, another one of those first-round picks of the Mariners back in 2023. His season, which was going very well, was unfortunately cut short due to an ACL injury. And that's ultimately why I didn't get too aggressive on my ranking with Johnny, even though that I do really like him. I really like the profile here. I think there's a ton of upside here. I think Johnny Farello has the potential to be a really special player, but first season in pro ball, first full season in pro ball, cut short due to an ACL injury. Now, that might not mean anything, really. It might not impact him at all in the future. ACL injuries are certainly not the death knell that they used to be in sports. But we also don't not know that it's going to be an issue, whatever, right? We don't know if it's going to be an issue or not. So until we see how he recovers, how he bounces back, because athleticism is obviously a big part of his game. Being able to cover a lot of ground in the outfield, being able to, cut the bases well. And I remember having Brody Hopkins on the show a couple of months ago, and he talked about how, in a blink of an eye, Johnny will hit the ball, and then all of a sudden he's on third, right? Is he able to maintain that post injury? So put him at number 6 just to be safe, but overall really like Johnny Farello. And by the time we do this next year, the next midseason re-rank, by the time that he's probably playing again, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in our top 3 for sure.
Yeah. Obviously the ACL thing is legit, and he's going to be 20 years old here in a couple weeks. So he's a little bit older than a guy like Pete. But I look at this guy, I see probably the best athlete in the Mariners system. Pre-injury, he is freaky raw power. It is plus speed, double plus speed. I think he's going to be well above average center fielder. There's a little arm bar thing with a swing, but right now it's working. So there's really no reason to change anything until it stops working. We'll see if that eventually catches up to him. But when I look at Farello, I look at a guy who has the potential to hit 20 homers, steal 40 bags, and play well above average defense in center field. I think you squint, you look at it, Johnny Farello could be Grady Sizemore. I think that's the level of player we're talking about at the ceiling. And I would rather take a shot on a guy like that than somebody who we're going to get to here in a second, whose floor is just lower. Doesn't mean it's less valuable, just a lower floor. And again, Farello, I have no doubt that he can play center field. Again, we'll see how he looks coming off the ACL. Maybe that changes, but until I see that it's changed, I'm going to assume it's not, because we've made such great, advances with that surgery. To me, I look at a guy, I see he's either going to be a plus center fielder and an average hitter. He might be a plus center fielder and a plus bat. Like, there is an all-star player in Johnny Farello, and I don't know if there's all-star players in the next couple guys coming up on this list. And that's why I still had him so high.
All right, so let's get into our top 4 in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Think Tyreek Hill will get more than 90.5 yards in week 1, or that Caleb Williams will throw for fewer than 236.5 yards in his debut? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, run your game. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, tonight you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Dodgers on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Probably listen to them help another guy set their career high in strikeouts tonight. All right, let's get into our top 4 prospects here as we wrap up our midseason re-rank of the Mariners farm system. Coming in at number 4, it's Michael Arroyo, who... he's having the best year of any Mariners minor leaguer this year. It's either him or Brandon Garcia. They're the Mariners minor leaguers of the year to me. Arroyo has answered pretty much all the questions you would have about him. The biggest question of all, can he hit for power? Yeah, he's hit 20 home runs as of this recording between Modesto and Everett. He's crushing it in Everett. He's doing even better in Everett than he was in Modesto. It's a ridiculous year that Michael Arroyo is having right now. And he looks like a guy that might be ready for Double-A soon. Now, that might come next year, might not come by the end of this year. But, yeah, we're probably talking about Michael Arroyo starting to get close to being on the doorstep of the majors here in about the next year or so. So that's really fun. And again, answered so many questions this year. How you feeling about Michael Arroyo?
Really good. Because like you said, he's hitting for power. He's got, he's got 45 extra base hits with a month to go. 20 of those are home runs. He's got 7 triples. He's stolen 11 bags. He's walking a ton. He's been pretty much the same player, a little bit better even. In high A than he was in Modesto. But yeah, the only concern right now, the strikeout rate is pretty high in Everett. But the metrics of like the exit velos and the stuff that he's putting up out of Everett too are just like off the charts. So this is a guy who always thought was going to be able to hit a little bit. I think it's legit 60 bat. I think the raw power certainly has to be at least considered. I would say projects to be at least average. So 20 home runs, I think at the big league level isn't out of the question. Pretty good athlete. He's not going to play short. Even if he, could, and I don't think he's terrible there, but he's behind 3 or 4 other guys. So he's not going to be a shortstop long-term, but it does appear that he can certainly stay on the infield. Probably second base is where he's going to be best suited. There are some questions about the arm. But if you're getting a second baseman who's a 60 hit tool, who has average power, can steal, 10, 15 bags, and is going to have, above average range or whatever, you get that guy. That is a borderline all-star. That's a 3-4 win player. And again, he's not 20 years old yet. So there's actually still more to go get. They still have time to go get more from him. So I look at him and I say, hey, this is a guy who can run a little bit. He can play in the infield. Like he can play second or third, maybe even short. We'll see where the arm ends up, but he's going to play in the infield. He's going to play on the dirt. He has this pretty high floor because he's going to make contact. He's going to draw walks. He's going to hit a lot of doubles in the gap at least. That's why I like him more than somebody like Lazaro Montes, who has one path to the big leagues. Michael Arroyo has multiple paths to the big leagues. And while Laz probably has the higher ceiling, Arroyo has the more likely, like he has more chance, like more of a chance to get there and stay there because he can help you in a lot of different ways. So I really like Arroyo.
Yeah.
He's having a great year. Like you said, he might be ready for Double A next year, at the start of next year. The Mariners put Cole Young at Double A at 20 years old. They could do the same with Michael Arroyo.
Coming in at number 3 is Harry Ford, who was number 3 on this list the last time we did this as well. You put him all the way down to 5 on your personal list, Colby. We'll get into that in a second. I still kept him at 3 because I still think there's a lot of upside here. There's still the possibility of him catching and being a quality hitter as a catcher, which is very, very valuable. But if he can't catch, I do worry about him just being kind of a guy, right? Wherever else he plays. You concerned about that as well?
Yeah. That's why I have him at 5. Now, to be fair, based on what I hear and what I read and all that stuff, I don't see any reason why Harry Ford can't catch. Is he going to be a Gold Glover back there? Is he Cal Raleigh? No. Is he a disaster? No, he's not. So, I think, my concern with Ford right now is more that the in-game power still hasn't shown up. He's only 21, right? He's still young, and he's having a decent year at Arkansas, but
it's just been a lot of up and down this year.
I still have questions about his power. I still have a few questions about his approach. He oftentimes looks like he's up there to walk. Like that's his game plan, is to draw a walk. And to be fair, he's really good at it. This has been his low water mark in on base percentage, and it's 376 as a 21-year-old in Double A.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's still a lot to like here with Ford, but
the problem is the slugging percentage is just 4 points higher than that.
Right. And to me, like, if he can't catch, okay, is he going to play third base? Well, if he's going to play third base, he needs to hit for more power. Is he going to play a corner outfield spot? Well, if he does, he needs to hit for more power. Can he play up the middle? I don't know. Like he's already put a lot of strain on his body catching as much as he has, but they've played him in left field a couple times. I think he could probably handle set. Like, he's still a great athlete too. Like it's when you look at Harry Ford, you say, wow, he dropped to 5. It makes it sound like, oh, I'm really concerned about Harry Ford. Not really. Like, to me, I just wonder, like, is the power ever going to show up? And if the answer is no, then he kind of has to catch to be an everyday big leaguer. And I mean, catch pretty well. Like, he has to be able to catch 4 or 5 times a week. And I'm still betting he could, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be 5. I do think he's going to be able to catch, but he's 21 years old. He still hasn't shown that in-game power yet. Not enough of it to say, like, well, if he can't catch, you just put him at third base. He'll be fine. He'll give you that kind of production. And I do still have concerns about the approach, that it's just a little too passive. And the strikeouts are up a little bit this year too. But at worst, he's a guy who can play catcher, 2 or 3 times a week without killing you. He's a guy who will draw walks. He'll hit some line drives, run into some power, might steal some bases for you, and is probably athletic enough to play a couple days in the outfield or at third base and catch a couple days. Like, he's still an incredibly valuable piece, but they're just concerns about his game right now.
All right, coming in at number 2, it's Cole Young. Just recently turned 21 years old in his first full season in Double A. Also, like Harry Ford, been a little bit of a up and down in terms of the production in Double A. He's been red hot though as of late. Has your opinion at all changed on him?
Not really. I still see him as a guy can play shortstop if you need him to. Absolutely, he can do it. Probably best suited for second base. That's probably going to be his best position. It's probably where he's going to land. I still have questions about how much power you're actually going to get out of him. But I do think he's going to hit for a high average. I think he's going to draw walks. I think he's going to play above average defense up the middle. And I think he can steal you, 15, 20 bags at the big league level. It's just a really solid profile, and it is an everyday guy who's going to play either shortstop or second base. There's not a lot of those guys out there who can not only stay up the middle their entire time as a prospect status, but they also are going to give you something at the plate. Cole Young is going to hit for an average. He's going to hit doubles. He's going to hit line drives. There still might be some power to get, although he's pretty much, maxed out, I think, physically. I think he's going to be about 6 foot tall, about 180 to 200 pounds, somewhere in that range. It's just, there's a lot, to me, there's just a lot of, 50 tools across the board. And then to me, the hit tool is a 60. And because we know he can play shortstop and second base, there's really no concern that he's not going to play up the middle. There's less pressure on him to develop that power to, anything close to average. Right now, I'd say the raw power tool is probably below average even. But we have seen stretches where he's pulled the ball, he can get to the pull side, he gets some home runs. So no, I mean,
he's slugging more than Harry Ford this year.
Right. But 8 home runs.
Yeah.
But 23 doubles. So
couple.
I think Cole Young is what he is. I think he's going to be a solid major leaguer. I think he's probably going to play 10, 15 years at the big league level and probably just put up a bunch of 2.5 win seasons. And, at his prime, he might be a 3.5, 4 win player because maybe he taps into a little bit of power. Maybe he, finds a stroke at the plate and he's hitting 280 with a 360 on base and he's slugging 15 homers and stealing 20 bags while playing above average defense at second base. Yeah. I could totally see that. Cole Young is just a really good prospect.
Yeah. That's why I have him ranked here. Cause I feel confident that he's just going to be a solid big leaguer, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be an all-star, but I feel like he's a surefire 2.5, 3 win guy on a year-to-year basis.
You want me to make the comment section go crazy right now?
Oh boy. All right, go ahead.
Cole Young is going to be what Jack Zarinczyk thought Dustin Ackley was going to be.
All right. Well, coming in at number 1, it's no surprise. It's Colt Emerson once again.
Best prospect since Julio in the system.
Now, how close is he to Julio? I guess that's the next question.
There's some distance there.
Yeah.
I mean, Julio is just a freak. Like,
right.
Julio's 6'4", 230, and he's got 70, 80 grade speed with, at his best 80 grade defense in center field. Emerson is 6'1", 195. But he can definitely play shortstop. He's got the arm to play third base if you need him to. Like, I don't know. It feels to me like his floor, Emerson's floor, and obviously this isn't the case because to say a guy's floor is the player I'm about to say is utterly ridiculous. His floor to me feels like Kyle Seager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he legitimately feels like, yeah, he's going to hit 250, 260, hit 25 homers, above average defense at third base. Like, that's what he's going to be. And to say somebody's a 19-year-old's floor is like a 25 win player in their career feels ridiculous, but I just feel that good about the bat. I feel that good about the hit tool. And if you want a ceiling, you don't even have to leave that family tree. The ceiling is Corey Seager. Like, there's a lot of similarities between Corey Seager and Colt Emerson. I love Colt Emerson. To me, there is no debate. If anybody is trying to tell you that Colt Emerson isn't the best prospect in the Mariners system, they do not know what they're talking about. Do not listen to them. It is Emerson gap 2 through 6. And the gap between 2 and 6 is very small. But Emerson is significantly better than everybody else. Again, just 19 years old. He's already at Everett. He's going to make his debut in Arkansas at some point next year, assuming he can stay healthy. It is an above average hit tool, maybe even plus. It is an above average raw power, maybe even plus. It is at least average defense at short. It is at least an above average arm. And, oh, by the way, he's actually a pretty good runner too. He can actually move a little bit. Like, that's the one thing where he's not quite Kyle Seager and he's not quite Corey Seager. Dude can move. He can move a little bit. So to me, Colt Emerson, again, obviously you can tell I like him because I just comped his floor to Kyle Seager and his ceiling to Corey Seager. Like,
yeah,
those are like, I basically just said his floor is an all-star third baseman and his ceiling is MVP shortstop. Yeah, I like Colt Emerson quite a bit.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, it's very easy to see why, especially with how much he dominated Modesto right out of high school, too, right? Like, dude didn't waste any time going from the prep circuit to pro ball and just destroyed pretty much everyone in his path along the way. Right. And, yeah, high A, it's only been 11 games. He's not hitting for a high average or anything right now. It's just been
385 on base.
Yeah, it's just been a fine start. Like he's walking a lot. That's really it. That's the big thing. But like it's only a matter of time before he starts smoking that league as well.
Yeah, he's right now. It just ended, but he was on a pace, or he was on a streak where he had reached base in like 47 consecutive games. Then it broke. He broke that streak. And then the next day, I think he had 3 hits, including a home run. So like he has reached base in like 52 of his last 53 games.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a pretty special player.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So that's our top 10. Hope you guys enjoyed this series, our top 30 series. If you missed prospects 30 through 21 or 20 through 11, go watch those episodes now. Before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Tai Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tai Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Now head on over to Locked On Seahawks to get all the latest on the Hawks from Corbin Smith and the gang, and tell them Tai and Colby sent you. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.